Gavin Newsom, governor of California, has learned a lot from those he loathes and is adopting the tactics of the right. It appears to be working, actually. The California governor is now atop a recent poll among Republicans. Turning Point USA asked among Republicans, which Democrat do you think is the most difficult to defeat in 2024? Newsom nearly doubled Michelle Obama on the list. Joe Biden, as you can see, is almost at the bottom. Forget for a second that Republicans view Mr. Biden, the sitting president, as the easiest to defeat. Newsom is scary to Republicans because of his tactics. On the left, the California governor just signed legislation offering private citizens a $10,000 bounty for suing gun manufacturers. Where on earth could you imagine that he would get the idea of deputizing citizens to get around constitutional protections? Well, if it sounds familiar, it's because it is. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, who pioneered the idea. Just last year, Abbott supported legislation allowing any citizen to sue someone involved in an abortion. The bounty, at least $10,000. Unless you are on one of the far extremes of those issues, well, you and America lose. Newsom and Abbott win because we are talking about them, and it makes for great ads in Iowa when they run for president. More importantly, we are no longer a country of laws when states compete with each other for the most outrageous culture war win. As a loyal viewer, you'll remember our prediction when the Texas abortion law went into effect back in September.
Imagine California enacts a law that lets private citizens sue gun stores for whatever violations of the law. That law cannot be stopped in court. Every gun store will be subject to 1,000 lawsuits. So this is a bottomless pit that we sort of start going down.
Yeah, bottomless pits in the culture war are bad. They're bad places to be. They do nothing to solve inflation, crime, the border crisis, or confront China. But evidently, they do help you run for president. Ian Samuel, clerk for the late Justice Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court, and joins us now. We'll get to the law of the California law in a minute. But from a cultural standpoint, from a political standpoint, Gavin Newsom has now learned how to fight fire with fire. Is he giving Democrats that fight and that anger that a lot of them don't see in Joe Biden?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think Governor Newsom has recognized is that modern national politics, most people have given up on the idea that national elections are going to generate meaningful change in their lives, right? Even Trump, the fears of which on the left were that he was going to be some kind of, fascist revolutionary. It ended up being largely business as usual. I know that nobody wants to hear that, but it was actually a pretty normal 4 years outside of the media. So what people are then looking to in their politicians, having given up on the idea that anything is going to fundamentally change, I mean, Joe Biden promised it wouldn't, and that is one promise he is definitely going to keep, is spectacle. Right? They want the show. And Trump understood that very well. He's a great showman. That was why he so electrified a lot of the people in the GOP base, is that he had a kind of gleeful embrace of a kind of almost pro wrestling aesthetic. Newsom has that. He knows as well as I do and as well as you do that the Supreme Court wouldn't hesitate if this gun law actually got to be a problem to just flick it away like it was nothing. That's not the point, right? That's not the point at all. The point is the same thing as when he went on Truth Social to post about the murder crisis in red states. He's trolling. Gavin Newsom has learned from Trump that trolling the people on the other side that your base doesn't like is very effective, and it very much pleases them. And he's very well suited for it. He's a great troll, and that's what this is about. It has very little to do with guns or principle or law or anything else. He's trolling, and that, I don't know. I think that could work.
Yeah, look, Donald Trump was quoted by Playboy magazine in the 1980s saying it's called The Trump Show and it's sold out everywhere. And
exactly.
So he's understood that for decades. Newsom is now learning that. This was the ad that Newsom took out in Texas. Our creator endowed us with the right to life, and yet children lose their right to life every year because of cutting out what Abbott said about abortion, gun violence in California. We work to save those lives, Governor Gavin Newsom. Okay, fine. Again, trolling. At the same time, though, Trump was both trolling and then he also was fighting. And that seems to be the thing that people who try to copy him miss that side of. Is this Abbott proving that he can do both? Or not Abbott, Newsom, pardon me?
Well, the thing that will have to tell the tale on that is that Trump took the fight directly to the other politicians in his party. I mean, let's remember how brutal the man was against whoever happened to be his leading competitor in the GOP primary that week. I mean, the man sent Jeb Bush to the shadow realm just for starters. And then he sort of set in on whoever was the next competitor and the next competitor. Ted Cruz's dad killed JFK. I mean, you name it. I mean, the poor Secretary for Health and Human Services for Housing and Urban Development, Ben Carson, was a raging murderer at one point in the 2016 GOP primary. Remember that? So if Gavin Newsom is willing to do that to his Democratic field competitors, then I think that he might prove that he has what Trump had, which is a kind of fearlessness of his own party's establishment. If he starts talking about how Pete Buttigieg is a CIA asset, then we'll see that kind of fight exists. But right now, he's just going after a softer target, Greg Abbott, governor of Texas.
That is a phenomenal point of the kind of circular firing squad that existed in the Republican Party, still exists today in the Republican Party, does not exist in the Democratic Party, did a little bit in the primary in 2020, but not nearly to the extent that you're describing. Why not, and what will change that and turn Gavin Newsom against Pete Buttigieg in that way?
Well, the closest we've seen, right, is in 2016 and 2020, Bernie Sanders came, who, I was a big Bernie guy. I would have done election fraud for the man if I could have and would have gotten away with it. He got the closest in terms of his criticisms of Hillary Clinton, but even he could not really seal the deal and really go after Joe Biden the way that a lot of us wanted him to. And I think part of the reason for that has to be understood in terms of the sort of attitudes of the base themselves. Most Democrats who watch MSNBC are essentially terrified of the Republicans, and they've been taught, basically ever since, the Vietnam War or George McGovern or whatever, starting point you want to pick, that you've got to be electable, you can't push too hard, you can't be too ferocious, and we've all got to be on the same team here, right? On the Republican base, I'm not sure why that isn't the case, right? I'm not a Republican, and perhaps there's more insight into that. But there, I think, is more of a feeling of betrayal among the party's leadership. And so Republicans, Trump went after George W. Bush on the Iraq War. I am old enough to remember when that would have gotten you run out of polite society as a Democrat, right? And that same appetite doesn't seem to exist among the Democratic base, at least not yet, but maybe it will. I think it certainly should.
Well, it seems as though Gavin Newsom is at least trying it out and tiptoeing up to the line. Whether he crosses it, as you point out, is an excellent point. Hey, Ian, it's great to see you as always. Thank you.
Nice to see you too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.